Yo, what's going on? Happy Sunday. It's good to be here. Appreciate you listening in. This is the Execute Regardless podcast. The podcast that was founded with the purpose of proving that there is no secret. You should know that by now, because I know you're a return listener. You got your coffee. Let's fucking go. So, happy Sunday. Appreciate you being here. Today, I want to talk about essentially a concept that I use that you can leverage to force the outcome into existence. And I've given you guys many strategies in terms of becoming unbeatable, executing regardless, putting yourself in a position where you're willing to do whatever it is. But some people, by nature, maybe you, maybe someone else listening in, some people are lazy by nature. I was very lazy, and to be honest, I have to fight laziness sometimes. But some people are lazy to the extent that they don't get anything done, and essentially they go on this merry-go-round of making a little bit of progress, getting complacent, then being deluded that they're in a position of security. Essentially, time and the laziness catches up with them again, and they're back to square one, and they're in panic mode. And usually that goes around for a couple of times, and eventually people cop on, but in a lot of cases they don't. And fortunately enough, I had a mentor a few years ago who not only highlighted this fact to me that I'm sharing with you, but he taught me a lesson that eventually hit me when I got fucking sick of being on that merry-go-round, because that was me for a long time. You know, when I was running my marketing consultancy in the early days, I would scale my monthly income, and what would happen is I'd get ahead of myself. I'd be like, you know what, I'm good now. I can hit the brakes. I had this false sense of security because now I was making a lot more money per month. I had more savings in the bank, and essentially I gave myself this false sense of security about my future, as if I was set, and I was fucking very far from set. By the way, my coffee's gonna go cold, so I'm gonna have a sip. You should too. No lattes on the podcast, by the way. Only black coffee. But anyways, back to the point. Point being, in the early days of my marketing consultancy, what would happen is I'd have success, I'd land clients, I'd be delivering for them, and then eventually the churn rate, you know, the biggest problem I had in the agency space was, and you're not going to believe me when I say this, we would deliver a job so good. We would do too good of a job to the point our biggest problem was people kept saying, we're good, we don't need any more. So what would happen is we'd acquire a client, we'd have them for 3 to 4 months, and then eventually they'd say, we can't handle any more, we're going to hit the brakes. And when you don't have your foot on the accelerator and you're kind of aware of this, you know, and you're asleep at the wheel like I was, eventually that churn rate catches up and you end up back at square one. And I went through that cycle, I don't know how many fucking times, until I got sick of it. And I remember what my mentor told me back then. And because it's fucking frustrating. It's frustrating, right? And you're just in this loop of panic and survival mode. You know, I always refer to the treadmill of exhaustion. Well, I'd been on the treadmill for a couple of years. So, anyways, I remember, actually, disclaimer. Well, not a disclaimer, but more context. I always noticed when I would get complacent and then everything went to shit again, I always found the way to get myself out of it, right? And I noticed when I was under pressure, I worked best. I noticed when my back was against the wall, that was when I performed best. That was when I focused more. That was when my output was higher. That was when everything was just at 100%, right? Because I had no fucking choice. And it dawned on me, and my mentor gave me a term to encapsulate what I'm talking about here. And what he said, Callum, you need to stay in that mode. You just mentioned about having your back against the wall, performing at 100%. He said, you need to make sure that you stay in that state of mind constantly. See when you're unstoppable, see when nothing gets in your way, you can solve any problem, you can output as many hours as you want. He said, you need to find the way to stay in that state. And he said, I have the solution. He said, the way you stay in that state all year round, he said, and he'd done this, he said, you do it, you stay locked in 24/7, even if you're lazy by nature, by going to zero, right? That is how you stay locked in 24/7, executing like a fucking savage, is by going to zero. Let me explain this. So going to zero means essentially taking everything in your life that's giving you a false sense of security and dumping it. So in my case, I'll give you his case. So this guy makes millions from property. And he said to me, what I do is, every time we're generating cash flow, he said we build up 6 months worth of money. We build up 6 months of the cash flow, we put it aside, and then what we do is we dump it. He said we make all this money, we dump it, and then we're forced to go and earn more again. He said, and then we do that twice a year, and he said that's how we get more out of ourselves. And he said, what you need to do, this was the exercise he gave me, and I would recommend for you, all right? He said, every time you accumulate whatever it is you're seeking, so every time you accumulate money, if you want to do it on a monthly basis, here's what you do. He said, Callum, he said, take your monthly income, he said, and fucking put it somewhere where you don't have access to it. He said, bring your bank account back down to zero. And he said, I'm telling you now, if you put a measure in place where you do that every month, he said, you will fucking execute all year round. He said, you won't have time to be lazy. You can't afford to be lazy because you're going back to zero now. You're in survival mode. Does that make sense? He said, and you need to make a conscious choice. You need to put intentional thought into going to zero all the time. He said, and that is the way you stay hungry like a fucking dog on the back of a meat truck. That was the way he explained it to me. He said, if you want to stay hungry like a dog on the back of a meat truck, he said, you need to go to zero every month. And I was like, holy fuck. And that is something that I've been practicing over the last 2 or 3 years. And sometimes I'm amazing at it. Most of the time I would say 85% of the year. But there's always that period where life, I don't know, man. Like the external is dangerous. It's like it creeps in, this comfort. I'm good. We could have a great fucking 8 or 9 months. Hey, you can hit the brakes. And that's the external creeping in. But that's why you have to make a conscious effort to go to zero. And here's what I would recommend doing. What I would recommend doing is, this is the exercise. Make a list of all the assets that you have in your life right now, okay? List out all the assets. So that could be savings in your bank account. That could be anything you own, from computers, from cars, to watches, jewelry. List out all the assets you have in your life. Put that on the left side of a piece of paper. Then on the right side, what I want you to do is, I want you to map out your future. Now, what I want you to do is, I want you to ask yourself, do all these assets that I've just listed out, will they secure my future? Right? Think about this, right? So you're listing out, let's say, the savings in your bank account, any other assets you have, like, watches or fucking cars, whatever, homes. Do they secure your future? Right? 9 times out of 10, unless you're a fucking multi-millionaire, what you just listed out, you have a false sense of security, right? Now, what you need to do now is, you need to acknowledge that you have, like me, have been living in a fucking alternate universe. You've been living under a false sense of reality, and the way to get more out of yourself and to force the outcome into existence is to take all these assets and dump them. Bring them down to zero. Forget that you even fucking have them, because let's be honest here, they are not going to secure your future. This stuff on the left-hand side, right? The savings in your bank account, your house, your car, all this stuff, that is not going to protect you. So let me tell you what will protect you, all right? And this is in all walks of life. This is in all walks of life, from financial, from health, personal, professional, everything. Here's how you get the best out of yourself all year round. Even if you're lazy as fuck, right? You need to switch from being a manager to a producer. That is the fundamental switch here. You need to go from managing a handful of assets that are not really going to secure your future to becoming a producer every day. Because the only thing that's going to secure your future is producing more. Okay? Because you're either growing or you're dying. There's two options. Don't think there's anything in the middle, because it never works being in the middle. Right? You're either growing or you're dying. People who manage, it always leads to less. Think about this, okay? You're either expanding, you're contracting, but you're never in the middle. Staying in the middle, saying, I'm good, I don't need any more, things are fine right now, that always leads to less. That always leads to contracting. You need to be expanding, you need to be on offense all the time. And the way you will force yourself to stay on offense is by going to zero, is by making a conscious effort to say, you know what, these things, by dedicating my time to managing these, number one, they are not going to secure my future, okay? And choosing to believe that is fucking just living in as I said, an alternate universe. You're just deluding yourself. And the second thing is, I need to dump them. I need to go back to zero. I need to be like a dog on the back of a fucking meat truck, okay? I'm happy, but I'm never satisfied. And that's the key here. That's the key here. You can be happy. You can be happy. You can be happy, but never be satisfied, okay? And that's one thing about winners. They always go back for more. They always go to zero. If you notice, even if you read Tim Grover's book, Relentless, he talks about how Michael Jordan, pretty sure it was Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant, one of them, he talked about Michael Jordan. And after they won the championship, right, everyone would be gone out partying, everyone would be celebrating. He didn't celebrate. What did he do? He went back to the court. He went back to training because he was thinking about next year, right? He was never fucking satisfied. And that's the trait of a winner. Happy, never satisfied. Forcing yourself to go back for more. Forcing more fucking blood out of something that everyone's saying you can't get more out of. You can. And you look at all the greats. You look at all the best. That's what they do. They put themselves in a position where there is no alternative. Okay? And it's this thing, even if you try and you tell yourself eventually you'll become satisfied. In my opinion, I'm never satisfied. And I think that's something that you just accept and you need to learn to live with, right? That people like you and me, we are never going to be satisfied. Think about this. You can be happy. But people like you and me, we're never going to be satisfied. By the time you get to point B, by the time you achieve what it is you're setting out to do, I'm telling you, you are going to want more. And you can be happy. That's good. You should be happy. I'm the fucking happiest I've ever been in my life right now. But I am not satisfied. I am always fucking hungry. And I know you are too. And how we stay progressing all the time is by applying this principle. To be honest, I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing going to zero. And that's what even the best companies, you look at Amazon, I think they call it day one. They go into work and they operate as if it's day one all over again. So yeah, that is how you, number one, cure laziness, being stuck on the roller coaster of fucking inconsistent effort, we could call it. Go to zero, put your back against the wall. Because let me tell you something, by the way. You go to zero, you and I both know, I'm going to place a bet. You and I both know, if you really went to zero, if you put it all on the line, you dumped everything you had that you thought was giving you this sense of security, but you know it's not. If you dumped all that aside and had to go again, right, you'd no other choice. You know it as well as I do. You'd fucking win. You know it as well as I do. If you put it all on the line, right, if you made an intentional effort every month to go to zero, all the progress you made, you dumped it and you went again, you know you'd fucking build it back up. Now imagine if you done that month after month, year after year. How much further would you go? How much more would you get out of yourself, right? So start going to zero. Start going to zero. Don't fucking kid yourself. You need to become a producer every day, not a manager. So that's my rant for today. We'll leave it at that. Also, January 1st, winnerswin.com. See you there. Well, I'll see you before then, but January 1st, winnerswin.com. Winners win because they execute regardless, right? There is no secret. Take ownership. And remember this before we wrap up. Someone else is out there hunting. Right now, you're the hunter. But do not get so fucking complacent. Do not get satisfied. Because eventually, you sit there all full. The hunter will become the hunted. Someone else out there is coming to take what you want. Coming to take what you might already have. So do not get satisfied. Do not become the hunted. Alright? That's the first thing. You need to go to zero. And I always say to keep the wolves away. You must do this to keep the wolves away. And interpret that how you want. That's subjective and applicable in different ways to all of our lives. But one of the reasons why I go to zero all the time, why I train so hard, why I work so hard, is because of that. Is because I want to keep the wolves away. I know that eventually the hunter can become the hunted. Okay? So that's why do not live with this false sense of reality that everything's going to be fine, that you're good. Okay? Good, I'm fine, that always leads to more. You're either growing or you're dying, expanding or contracting. You're never in the middle, right? Because enough always leads to less, right? That's it. Wrapping up. I appreciate you being here. As always, fucking smash the 5-star button. Over and out.